What's going on, everyone? Welcome in to another episode of the Mast Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Dalton Pence. I serve as the territory sales manager for the Mast Sales Group in the states of Kentucky, the majority of Indiana, and Southern Ohio. Joining me for this week's episode is CEO of Blue Square Manufacturing, Jeremy Owens. Jeremy, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Dalton, how are you?
Oh, man, hanging in there, doing my best to, understand that I want fall to come because I'm a fall type of guy, but understanding that, we got such a late start to the season this year, at least in the Ohio Valley, where, it's like, hey, what's a little bit of hot weather heading into September? But I mean, you being out in the hot part of the American Southwest, I feel like we don't really connect in that regard.
Yeah, it's love-hate for me. Obviously, it supports our industry, right? But 15 out here in Phoenix, I'm like, oh, I can't wait for fall to get here. So,
yeah, sure. So I definitely wanted to bring Jeremy on as we focus on innovation on this show, where things have, gone from this to where we are now and where we project to be in the future. I think that Jeremy has a pretty unique perspective, and being the CEO for Blue Square, which is a company that really pushes the envelope with innovation. So we'll talk a little bit about how that relates to the lighting industry. We'll talk a little bit about tariffs and what that could look like eventually, private equity, and much, much more. Jeremy, we'll start out this way, kind of, sort of like a college icebreaker, if you will. Tell the guests a little bit about how you got to where you are and, what the entrance to the pool industry looked like.
Yeah. Over my shoulder, what you see, two airplanes back there. I started my early career as a Navy pilot. So that's how I got my start early in my career. When I left active duty, I ended up at Honeywell Aerospace in the manufacturing. That's where I kind of cut my teeth in the manufacturing space. And over the years, I've been at a couple of other companies. I've been with Blue Square almost 6 years now. I came in under the founder. Since then, he sold the company off to private equity. So my entrance into the pool industry is only about 6 years old. Don't have nearly as much experience as some of the other people, but the running joke is once you're in the industry, you never leave. So,
gosh, yeah, no, that is, doesn't matter where you are in the United States. Feels like that's universal. Well, first, thank you for your service, by the way. Glad to have crossed paths with you. For those that don't know about Blue Square, it's an innovative pool equipment manufacturer that's headquartered out of Chandler, Arizona. That's right outside of the Phoenix area. From LED pool and spa lights with patented plug kits to the Eclipse Drain Q360 Plus N4 cleaning system, Blue Square is known for manufacturing the industry's leading products, especially in that lighting division. And Jeremy, I have to kind of with sort of a newer insurance to the industry, things are still changing pretty quickly. So 6 years, you've been in the industry pre-COVID, correct?
Yeah, I got here in October of 2019. COVID hits right at the beginning of 2020 there. So my introduction into the industry started with a bang.
I mean, that's incredible to think about in terms of, hey, starting new and then boom, worldwide pandemic. But I'm curious, how have we sort of seen, if at all, the lighting industry kind of changed toward the names of innovation from 2019 to now? Because everything's becoming as technologically advanced as it can be. The pool industry, although it's one of those that kind of catches on later than others, you're starting to see innovation and technology take the forefront with automation and equipment packages, retrofitting, which we'll talk about soon. What have you seen in that regard, and how has Blue Square kind of adapted to that approach as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. One of the things that I was really taken aback by when I first came into the industry was how antiquated some of the technology was. And, without naming any names, you think about the way LED lighting was being controlled in a pool, and it was through old school relays, right? You literally stand out next to your control panel, and you'd hear the clicks as the relays went through and changed the color of the lighting in the pool. And I just thought, it's 2020, 2021, as we've moved, I was very surprised by that. Today you can go on Amazon, and I've done this, bought an LED lighting strip for one of my kids, which shows up, a day later, it's $20, and you have an app on your phone that can control that light with a, full synthetic color wheel, and you can change it to infinite number of colors. And that's been slow to come to the pool industry, right? We're not talking about any innovation that's not already out there in existing industries. It just hasn't made its way to the pool industry yet. I was kind of surprised by that. So, we're taking a kind of lean forward approach at Blue Square and trying to bring some of that innovation. The methodology that I've brought to Blue Square, when I think of innovation, I think of two things. I think of how do I make it easier to install, or how do I make it easier to service? And if I can solve one of those two problems, then I think we have a product that builders and service companies are going to want to put in. So that's the way we've approached it, and we're trying to bring innovation.
Yeah, and I think, we won't talk too much about specific product, but there's one line that Blue Square is or has been and is continuing to unveil that I think really epitomizes that, trying to make it easier for the installation, for the service guy. And that is, changing lights can be a bear sometimes. Like it is something that can take you all day, but this Galaxy bright line that Blue Square is unveiling. Talk to me a little bit about that, because it's something that you can kind of retro with a bunch of different types of manufacturers.
Yeah, for sure. If I've done it. I've done ride-alongs with my technicians, and I ask the question when I'm at shows, like, "Hey, have you been out there and pulled a cable?" And of course, every technician has pulled a cable. I'm like, "Do you like pulling cables?" And they're like, "No, I hate pulling cables." So our approach to that was to not have to do that. So the Galaxy Bright, we have a Galaxy Bright plug kit where, being UL approved, because it's a termination point on a cable, you can literally get the light up above the deck, cut that cable at the light, put our plug kit on, and put that light back into the wall. And, the other problem that we're really trying to solve is there's so many unique and out of production niches out there. So we're working on adapters for things like the swim whip light that went out of production years ago. And, again, how do we solve problems so that you don't have to chip up a deck and get conduit out of the ground and charge a homeowner $10,000 to change out a LED light? So, really trying to approach it from that solving problems perspective.
I mean, you see it not only in the industry, but really the nation as a whole. Everyone's trying to create the next big thing, right? And what that kind of does is, for the pre-existing product, well, it makes things more challenging, because swimming pools weren't something that just came about 5 years ago, right? They've been installed for, I would imagine close to 100 years. I'm not sure when the first swimming pool went in, but I imagine it's been quite a long time. And I kind of think that we are entering that uncharted territory in the industry, kind of coming off of that COVID time. We're trying to really figure out how this ship is going to navigate these waters, and one of those challenges is tariffs. And I would like to ask you, for being a CEO of a company, I'll ask you as a businessman, but also someone that's in the pool industry, how do we sort of navigate this? Like, what do you think the end goal is for tariffs in the pool industry? Nobody has the crystal ball, but what are your thoughts on the whole situation?
Yeah, I think I'll talk about it from a personal perspective. I already mentioned I'm a veteran. And so there's a sense of personal pride about manufacturing things here in the United States, right? So even pre this tariff era, I guess, if you will, I've started reshoring some of our products so that they're made here in the U.S. I would certainly say the tariffs have accelerated that desire to reshore some of our products from overseas. The size of the tariffs are certainly a pretty big incentive to do that. I think the most challenging thing from the seat that I sit in has really been the whiplash around the tariffs. So as we start to look at moving production from one country to another to mitigate against the tariff impact, all of a sudden there's a pause on the tariffs, right? So then it's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and leave it there before we move it. And, so there's definitely been a whiplash effect where we're trying to react to everything that's going on in real time while still keeping inventory in stock and making sure that we're shipping products on time. And that's been the biggest challenge, certainly during this tariff era over the last 8 months or so.
In another aspect that's changing a ton, again, you're seeing this with Disney. You're seeing this with a bunch of companies like consolidating, companies taking over other companies. You're seeing private equity get into the industry more than we've seen it probably, I would say, ever. What's your perspective on that? Is it something that is going to help the pool industry? Is it something that it's like, it's neither going to help nor hurt? It's really about what you make of it. What's your opinion on that?
I think it'll certainly change it. I mean, I mentioned I came in under the founder. The founder started a pool company back in the early 90s and started Blue Square as a manufacturing company back in 2010. And then he sold it to private equity in the 2022 timeframe. Whether it's some of the buying groups that are being consolidated under private equity or some of the builders out there, I think it's going to have an impact. It gives those builders bigger purchasing power. But it also, and this is where I think a challenge for a smaller company like Blue Square will come from, is they also want to consolidate their purchasing power, right? So if they have now multiple builders across multiple states or regions, they're going to want to go after some of those bigger rebates, the bigger incentives from the manufacturers, and consolidating under, maybe somebody from the big three, for example, would probably really help them from a margin perspective. And then Blue Square has got to be able to continue to figure out how to break that bundle, right? And so I think it'll be a challenge for smaller companies like Blue Square, as those companies consolidate under a single entity under private equity. So it does present some challenges.
One thing we like with this show is that, I feel like my goal, Jeremy, is that if I host a show with a special guest and someone listening to it takes one piece of information and applies it to their business, I feel like, there's a level of success with that show then. And it doesn't matter if it's a homeowner, a service tech, a business owner, CEO of a company. I think that the audience may vary, but as we kind of look into this next era of innovation, like I'll say again, no one has the crystal ball. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but 2025, let's hit fast forward to 2030. Do you have a prediction on where this ship is going to go? Like, what do you think is going to be next on the list of changing, heading into, I guess, this next era, half decade in the pool industry? If anything seismic, I imagine. It's kind of hard question to answer, but still, from your perspective, I'm interested to hear it.
Sure. I think companies that are adaptable are going to do well in the upcoming years, right? And what I mean by that is the big changes that occur. Take interest rates, right? Interest rates go up over the last 4 years or so. What happens? You start to see a shift away from a new construction to the service side. We've already mentioned our plug kit, and us being able to go out there and really coordinate with the service side has helped us well when new construction has been down. So I think, from the perspective of who's going to do well in the next few years, it's going to be those companies that are innovative, that are adaptable, that are changing with the changing environment. We mentioned tariffs. We've mentioned private equity. Those are seismic type changes that are impacting our industry. And if you're stagnant and just kind of doing the same thing you've always done, probably not going to be able to do well and succeed in the years to come. It's those companies who are going to be nimble and adapt with those changes and be able to turn it into a value proposition for the customer, who are going to do well in the years to come.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And I really like that perspective of it from just like an overall big picture thing. And if you are, let's say that we're putting ourselves in the shoes of a service tech, in the shoes of a, mom and pop family owned business owner. When it comes to, because I've had conversations with people out in the field. I was like, well, do you replace lights? And they're like, no, it's too, either we don't have the manpower, we don't have the time. What do you feel like one of the main mistakes a service tech or a business owner might make when it comes to introducing light changes and stuff like that to their business acumen?
Well, so what we typically see, we'll have people reach out to us when they say, well, I can't change this light out, right? It's, the conduit's crushed or the cable's swollen in the conduit. I literally can't pull it. I'm like, well, I have an option for you. But once you utilize this option with our Galaxy Bright plug kit, you're not going to want to pull a cable again in the future. And then it depends on who you're talking to, right? If you're talking to the actual service company owner, I'm going to say, do you want 2 people to go out to a pool and spend an hour pushing, pulling on a cable and, have that labor cost associated with doing that? Or do you want to pay one person to go out there and spend 10 minutes to cut that cable, put a new plug on it, and be in and out of that job? There's a labor savings. And again, when I talk about solving problems for people, there's a labor savings there, help them solve a cost problem for themselves. When you're talking to the service tech, it'd be like as I mentioned before, do you want to pull that cable? No, I really don't want to pull that cable. Great. Well, I've got an option for you where you can go out and just spend 10 minutes and on to your next job, right? So
right.
That's what I would leave them with is, again, our attempt to try to help people solve problems and make things easier is really where Blue Square is approaching the market.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because every market is different, right? Right. I mean, there are markets around the country that are primarily gunite, and then you have the Midwest where I'm at, and it's a lot of vinyl liner and fiberglass. And I keep coming back to this point to the more things are different, the more they kind of are very similar in just kind of the patterns of when they're introduced. And something that's kind of making its way through the industry is like these in-floor systems. It
Sure.
seems like, at least from the Midwest, and the Midwest is something I'll say they always are close to last in line to get some type of innovation and technology. It is what it is, but I find it pretty interesting. Blue Square has their option of the Q360 Plus, which I think it's pretty intriguing to me that, I mean, not only do you have the cleaning aspect of it, but the residual effects as well. Chemical consumption, or limiting chemical consumption, but also keeping heat in, because, I mean, in Kentucky, where I'm at, October, it gets pretty chilly, Jeremy. I'm thinking, like, big picture here, like, the gears are turning in my mind.
For sure. And what you're describing is just a different way to sell the value proposition of an in-floor system, right? On one aspect, you've got a cleaning system, right? It's going to clean leaves and debris and dirt from the bottom of your pool and really save that homeowner time, energy, and effort keeping their pool clean. On the other side of it, we all know that heat rises. What's the best place to inject warm water into a pool? It's from the bottom of the pool through jets on the bottom of your pool. So if you're, the conversation I have with people is, are you putting a heating system on your pool? I don't care if it's solar, heater, heat pump. You ought to couple it with at least an E360 system, if not a Q360 system, to bring that heat and those chemicals from the bottom of your pool for more even distribution. It's going to extend the swimming season as well. You talk about Kentucky or places that are further north. You want to extend that swim season on, either side of by a month or so. An in-floor system does that for the homeowner. So definitely.
Yeah, I like that for sure. Let's kind of tie this all back up in the name of innovation. And I think that one of the things that, I mean, again, it doesn't matter which side of the industry you're on, whether you're in manufacturing, distribution, retail, I mean, service, it doesn't matter. I think in the name of innovation, it's all because look, we're creatures of habit, right? Everybody wants to operate out of their own comfort. I think the thing that we as an industry have to understand is that a lot of times innovation can be pretty uncomfortable because you are switching up old habits and adhering to technology and other things. And like, it's one of those things, like, it sounds cool. Innovation just sounds cool. The name sounds cool, but implementing that within your business model, it takes a lot of looking in the mirror, right?
Sure, absolutely. And that's, but Blue Square started that way from the founder and our Q360. Very different than the other in-floor systems that are out there because of the way the valve works. The valve works on flow. But yeah, it's what we were founded upon. It's what we've built on. And look, I don't want to go out there and compete with all the other companies that are, introducing white goods into the space and compete with them on price if it's not something that's unique or innovative, right? Because then it makes it hard to sell, hard to compete. And so the types of product we're bringing to market, that innovation tagline is
Sure.
I think, where we compete, right? Again, easier to install, easier to service, then the product sells itself, right? We're not competing on price and those types of things. I'm not trying to distance somebody from distribution. It sells itself.
I understand that, Jeremy, with all that we've talked about today, and this is a question I ask every guest. If there is a thing that we've said, something that we talked about that you want to reiterate is kind of like the main thing you want to get across here. It's like, okay, what is sort of the biggest takeaway that Jeremy Owens wants the listener to be able to derive from this? What would you think that would be?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly depends on who the target is for that communication, right? Whether it's the homeowner or whether it's a service company builder. But the biggest thing I would like to get across is probably the partnership that Blue Square wants to bring to all of its customers, right? So we're here to help you guys solve problems, guys and gals, homeowners. And if we can do that, that's where we can add value into this industry. So we want to partner. We're not that organization that's going to show up once a year and drop off donuts and check in on how you're doing. We want to be there as that long-term partner. Whether it's, hey, you've never installed an in-floor system, so we need to walk you through the whole thing and get somebody out on site. It's that partnership level, right? Because you're totally right. You're introducing innovation. That can be a little bit scary. It can be a little bit, may end up being something you don't want to do or tackle because you're unsure about it. And then you can reach out to us and we'll help you figure it out and walk through it because we're here to partner with you. I think that would be my biggest takeaway.
No, I think that's a good one. I think that depending on the target audience, I think that it might change. And if you are in any part of, I would say, because the mass sales group is very geographically centered in the eastern part of the United States, we have some representation out there as well. If you're looking for a major innovation or a major innovative solution in the lighting industry, and you're interested in the Blue Square products, you can go to bluesquaremfg.com, or there is a link to contact me directly and I can get you in touch with the right person. But that is going to wrap up this episode of the Mass Podcast. Don't forget, a rising tide raises all ships. We'll talk to you soon.